I am Dr. Rebecca Sloan, a clinical specialist in aging medicine and men's cardiovascular health. A staggering 60% of men over the age of 55 are currently living with a condition called silent peripheral ischemia, a slow, progressive starvation of blood flow to the lower half of their bodies that goes entirely undetected by standard medical checkups. You might notice that your feet are constantly cold. You might experience sudden, unexplained cramps in your calves during the night. Or you might be dealing with a fading physical and reproductive response that seems to worsen with every passing year. These are not isolated issues of aging. They are the exact same microvascular failure happening at the deepest cellular level. Today, we are going to break down the exact biological mechanism destroying your lower circulation and how you can utilize a specific seed extract alongside precise physical protocols to rebuild those vessels and activate a massive double blood flow effect. This silent circulatory restriction in the lower extremities is the reason why countless men sit in my consulting room, confused as to why their physical vitality has plummeted despite their heart appearing healthy on a standard treadmill test. They know their body is failing them locally, but their general practitioner tells them their macro circulation is fine, leaving them without any real strategy to restore the function they have lost. By the end of this video, you will understand the exact microcapillary breakdown that standard cardiology often overlooks in a routine exam. And more importantly, you will have a clear, evidence-based roadmap to physically rebuild that damaged vascular network. To grasp why your lower circulation is failing, you have to understand the concept of microvascular rationing. As you age, your body faces a steady increase in systemic oxidative stress. When this inflammation enters your bloodstream, it behaves like microscopic shards of glass, constantly scratching and damaging the highly sensitive inner lining of your smallest blood vessels, known as the capillaries. Your lower extremities, including the pelvic floor, the reproductive organs, and the legs, are situated at the very end of the circulatory highway. When your body senses this widespread vascular damage, it goes into a state of biological triage. It begins rationing blood flow, prioritizing the core vital organs like the brain, the heart, and the lungs, and actively restricting blood from reaching the peripheral tissues. The vessels in your lower half do not just passively narrow. They are actively clamped down by your own nervous system to maintain core pressure. This is why the conventional medical approach of simply prescribing standard blood-thinning medications or generic vasodilators often produces highly disappointing results for localized physical vitality. I see men every week who have been placed on heavy pharmaceutical regimens, and while their systemic blood pressure might drop to a safer number on paper, the blood is still completely failing to reach their lower extremities and reproductive tissues. The medical system is treating the major highways, but completely ignoring the fact that the local neighborhood roads are shattered. According to cardiovascular data, this capillary rarefaction, which is the literal dying off of microscopic blood vessels, precedes major circulatory events by an entire decade. The most common mistake I see men make is engaging in aggressive, high-intensity cardio, thinking they can forcefully push blood down into their legs and pelvis. If your microvessels are already inflamed, stiff, and fragile, forcing high-pressure blood through them only increases the oxidative damage. You cannot hammer a fragile, inflamed system into submission. If we are going to reverse this microvascular starvation, we have to approach the body with precision, utilizing a protocol that I call the double blood flow effect. This targets both the structural integrity of the capillary wall and the mechanical pump that drives blood back up from the lower extremities. The first critical step involves the daily consumption of a highly specific seed known for its dense concentration of oligomeric proanthocyanidins. We are talking about the extract of Vitis vinifera, commonly known as specialized grapeseed. I advise my patients to consume this specific compound in a cold-pressed or pharmaceutical-grade extract form entirely separate from their meals. The biological mechanism here is profound. The compounds in these specific seeds have a unique molecular structure that allows them to bypass standard digestion and directly enter the bloodstream, where they bind to the endothelial glycocalyx. This is the microscopic, hair-like protective layer on the inside of your blood vessels. As we age, oxidative stress strips this layer bare, causing the vessels to stiffen and leak. The proanthocyanidins physically rebuild this protective barrier, significantly reducing local inflammation and allowing the hardened capillaries in your lower extremities to regain their elasticity and dilate naturally. The second crucial step involves utilizing your body's secondary circulatory pump. Your heart is only responsible for pushing oxygenated blood down into your lower extremities, but it relies entirely on the mechanical action of your musculature to push the deoxygenated blood back up against gravity. When men spend decades sitting at desks or leading sedentary lives, the blood pools in the deep pelvic and calf veins, creating a stagnant, toxic environment that further degrades the vessel walls. To break this cycle, you must isolate and activate the soleus muscle, a deep muscle in the calf that acts as a powerful venous pump. Before I explain the exact protocol to activate this secondary heart, I want to ask you to subscribe to the channel and leave a like on this video. Clinical education that relies on anatomical reality rather than loud, empty promises is heavily suppressed by modern algorithms. By engaging with this content, you help push real, scientifically grounded men's health information to the men who are silently suffering, assuming their loss of physical function is just an inevitable part of getting older. To activate the soleus pump and flush the lower extremities, the protocol requires a highly specific, seated movement. While sitting with your knees bent at a precise 90-degree angle, you must slowly raise your heels off the floor, holding the contraction at the top for 3 full seconds before lowering them with absolute control. Doing this for just 5 uninterrupted minutes every evening forces the soleus muscle to aggressively squeeze the deep veins, forcefully ejecting the pooled, stagnant blood out of your lower legs and pelvic floor. This mechanical flush clears the localized toxic buildup, allowing a fresh surge of highly oxygenated, nutrient-dense blood to immediately rush back into those tissues the moment you stop the exercise. It is a fundamental mechanical requirement for keeping the lower vascular network alive. For a significant portion of my clinical career, I operated with a deep skepticism regarding the bioavailability of natural supplements. It was my firm clinical stance to tell patients not to waste their resources on plant extracts, operating under the assumption that the human digestive tract destroys the vast majority of active compounds before they can ever cross the intestinal barrier and reach the bloodstream. I preferred to rely entirely on dietary shifts and physical protocols. However, as I tracked the recovery of my patients, I identified a clear gap. The mechanical protocols and dietary seeds I just outlined are highly effective. But for men over the age of 60 who had suffered from chronic lower limb coldness and pelvic circulatory failure for years, their systemic inflammation was simply too high. Their bodies were burning through antioxidants faster than any whole food diet could replenish them. I realized I needed a highly bioavailable biological support to break the inflammatory loop. I began researching isolated compounds with proven absorption rates, and eventually found a combination that I tested and now strictly include in my clinical recommendations. It hinges on 2 critical elements. The first is alpha-lipoic acid, an incredibly potent antioxidant that acts specifically on the peripheral vessels, aggressively reducing the localized inflammation that compromises circulation in the lower extremities and the erectile tissues. The second is a high-grade black pepper extract, specifically piperine, which is essential because it elevates the bioavailability of all active compounds by up to 20%. Without it, the liver simply filters out the nutrients before they can do their job. When I integrated this specific combination into the protocols of my patients over 60, the clinical shift was undeniable. Within 6 to 8 weeks, they consistently reported the return of warmth to their lower extremities, a massive reduction in nighttime cramping, and a distinct resurgence in their pelvic physical response. This is a targeted, laboratory-certified nutritional intervention designed to cross the absorption barrier. Because many patients struggle to find a formulation that contains this exact ratio without synthetic fillers, I have placed the direct link to the specific compound I recommend in the pinned comment below. You can navigate there after the video and evaluate the clinical specifications yourself. The necessity of understanding this microvascular breakdown extends far beyond simply wanting warmer feet or better bedroom performance. When the capillaries in your lower body begin to degrade, you are receiving a terrifyingly accurate preview of your future systemic health. The microvascular network is identical whether it is in your legs, your reproductive organs, or the deep tissues of your brain and heart. If your body is rationing blood away from your extremities, it is a clear biological signal that your cardiovascular system is operating under severe distress. In my clinical practice, the men who ignore these early signs of peripheral starvation are the exact same men who face catastrophic metabolic and cardiac events in their late 60s. Maintaining blood flow to your lowest extremities is not a luxury. It is the ultimate indicator of your overall longevity and your physiological independence as a man. We have detailed exactly how microvascular rationing and oxidative stress destroy your lower circulation, and how utilizing specific seed extracts for endothelial repair, activating the soleus pump, and lowering systemic inflammation can permanently rebuild those pathways. I want you to tell me in the comments, do you experience cold extremities, occasional calf cramps, or a fading physical response? And did you ever connect these 3 things together? Let me know your exact experience below. The human body is remarkably resilient, but the biological plasticity of your microvascular network is strictly limited by time. If you starve these tiny, fragile capillaries of oxygen and blood flow for too long, they do not just remain constricted. They undergo cellular apoptosis. They physically die and disappear from your vascular network entirely, making recovery infinitely more difficult. The clinical protocol and the nutritional support we covered today are designed to halt that degradation and rebuild the vessels while your body still has the structural capacity to regenerate them. The link to the exact formulation I use in my practice is in the pinned comment for your review. Remember, ignoring a circulatory warning sign guarantees a systemic failure later, but addressing the physiological root cause is how you command your own health.